Climate change and aquatic ecosystems. With an explosion of individuals since the Industrial Revolution, we've pushed the Earth to provide us with more than it is able to. Quote, climate change is considered to be one of the most severe threats to ecosystems around the globe, end quote, says the American Society of Limnology and Oceanography. But we have done nearly nothing to save this planet. The availability of fresh water is becoming increasingly unpredictable. With the heating of the Earth, virtually all small streams have disappeared, and many lakes have dried up or are nearly dry. 40% of all the fish species on our planet come from freshwater habitats. But because of overfishing, bluefin tuna, for example, are 2.6 of what they used to be, and have less than a 1% chance of recovering. Additionally, unsustainable fishing has caused the collapse of more than a third of the world's fish stocks. Many organisms have been forced to move and change their diet to match what's most available instead of what's most natural. Because of global warming, algae is thriving more than ever, so dead zones are more likely and more common due to eutrophication. Essentially, only 0.007% of all the world's water is available to supply to 8 billion people, and we haven't been treating it nicely. Lake Erie recently experienced its worst algae bloom ever in 2017, even worse than when the lake was declared dead in the 1970s. The Trump administration issued an executive order in 2018 that suggests that the EPA exclude wetlands as part of the bodies that are publicly protected. The only ones we can blame are ourselves. Though the oceans seem inhabitable to us, they are home to hundreds of thousands of species. Oceans and seas have absorbed 90% of the excess heat that's been caused by climate change and 30% of total human emissions over the years. Coral, such as in the Great Barrier Reef, is covered in the algae zooxanthellae, which gives the corals nourishment. But if the temperature of the water increases by just a few degrees and fails to go back to normal, both the algae and the coral die. Hundreds of species of organisms lose their habitat in this manner, and predators lose their food. Whales, seals, and dolphins that depend on these fish are struggling to feed themselves and are dying in the masses. The rate of acidification is more than 50 times what it has been for the past 800,000 years. If we continue emitting gases like we are currently, the acidity will have increased 144% in just 80 years. By 2040, the Arctic Ocean will be largely free of ice during the summer months. The land ice itself has already shrunk to less than 40% of what it was during the summers of the 1980s. If we continue treating the environment with the same carelessness as we do currently, we only have until 2030 before we set off a catastrophic chain reaction that makes extreme weather and natural disasters even more common than they are right now. As the sixth mass extinction continues, we're running out of time to correct our mistakes. And if we don't, which is very feasible in our lifetime without dramatic action, humanity has no future on this planet.